for wonderful performances that I've heard here in the Chicago area.
Oh, that's very kind.
Particularly on the record or off the record, I wanted to thank you for wonderful performances that I've heard here in the Chicago area.
Oh, that's very kind.
Particularly about 10 or 12 years ago when you played the Brahms by Chacon.
Oh.
Edward Gordon Memorial.
Yeah. Oh.
And I'd never heard it before, and I think at that point many people had not.
Oh.
And I was really deeply moved, and I left the concert feeling, oh, that's what architecture and structure is.
Didn't Christoph play at that concert?
Yes.
He did Slow Movement, I think, of Schubert B flat. It's quite, you know, making music as a pianist is a very solitary affair. And then as a conductor to come together with 70, 80, 90 colleagues and to try and convince them of the validity of one's approach to a certain piece. And if they decide to go along with you, if they respond in the affirmative, it's quite an extraordinary sensation to all be working towards the same realization, the same goal. It's quite special.
Are you conducting nowadays?
Yeah. Let's see, the next conducting actually is in Germany in 2 weeks. Yeah, an all Mozart program, the Stuttgart Chamber Orchestra.
Will you be playing?
Playing and conducting actually, but also conducting without playing.
Was the great tradition of score study through Schnabel, particularly immersion in the score, somehow paving the way towards reading an orchestral score?
Yeah, it's all the same thing. You know, music is music, whether it's for the kazoo or...
I remember reading in the book that L.M. Greenwald wrote that you had asked her, I think, if she, upon performance in a master class, thought that the piano was an instrument of color, instrumentation, or not, in a kind of challenging way. I think if I paraphrased it correctly, implying that the piano goes beyond the piano.
Hopefully.
Certainly the mechanics.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward then to what the coming era for you?
Well, era might be a little optimistic, but I have a fascinating year ahead of me, I think. Playing and conducting and recording with Stuttgart Chamber Orchestra, and my wife, Catherine Jacobson, and playing with such groups as San Francisco Orchestra, New York Philharmonic, London Phil, Uh, going to do a fundraiser for the Democratic nominee with Yo-Yo and Itzhak in September.
Mm-hmm. He's a Chicago guy.
Yep, right.
You know, I just wanted to, if I may digress, I wanted to find out the address of his house to drive by and cheer him on.
Yeah.
He's listed.
Is he?
Yeah, 5046 South Greenwood in Hyde Park.
Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that nice
Under
to know?
Michelle's
Good.
name, under his
I see. Beautiful, beautiful.
I recall reading a touching quote by you in the liner notes to your ACD, which you had recalled a fear or the anxiety when study with Schnabel had ceased, that somehow it would all, it hadn't
Disappear.
it would disappear, and then
Yeah.
a lovely image of a percolating coffee
Yeah,
pot or coffee.
Yeah.
Bringing it.
yeah.
Do you still find percolation?
Yes, yes.
Have you
Yeah, it's
needed-
nice.
have you needed this?
Well, I wish I could say as needed. There's no guarantee. But, yes, percolation continues to percolate.
Are you learning new repertoire, or is this the time to?
Yes, I do learn new repertoire. I learn some contemporary music of friends of mine. As you heard a couple of years ago, Kirchner wrote this left-hand piece. George Pearl has written music for me. A Chicago girl who was for many years my co-director of the theater chamber players in Washington, Dina Coston, Koston.
Yes, I heard you perform.
Yeah. And I'm going to be learning a new piece for me. I remember hearing it a long time ago, played by the Cleveland Orchestra. Partita by William Walton. Wonderful piece. I have a chance to perform it next year, so I need to learn that. Yeah.
May I also ask you about the Focal dystonia so that I get my facts correct?
Mm-hmm.
I read the many write-ups correctly. There was some success, but limited through massage and rolfing, but more substantial success through the Botox.
Well, actually, if I hadn't been well prepared, if my body hadn't been prepared by rolfing, I don't think the Botox would have helped. So in my mind, those two are closely linked.
Work together.
Yeah, yeah. But I still get rolfed when I'm home in Baltimore, and I still get my injections of Botox every 4 months.
Have you, and I noticed, I read in the book by Oliver Sacks, he observed you were very careful to keep stretching.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's something that all these pianists should do. You know, focal dystonia or no, it's a way of taking care of your means. You know, football players, tennis players, all these people who do such extraordinary things with their bodies uh, take very good care of their bodies. Nobody tells young artists who work under most stressful kinds of situations, in dead rooms, in pianos on pianos that are dead, no sound to them, and they're aspiring to these brilliant sounds, and they will, hack at the piano in their efforts to get it, and they only injure themselves. So getting involved in a stretching program, in a kind of calisthenics, things that help support the body. And as I like to say, we're athletes of the small muscle, but nonetheless athletes. And being small muscles, they're more vulnerable, they're more delicate, they're not big hamstring muscles or quads. So one has to treat them with respect.
And is it the case sometimes that the mainstream physicians may not be tuned into smallness? They may think things are okay.
The most physicians I've been these last few years actually traveling around the world, I've addressed any number of medical conventions as well as music conventions, piano conventions, and you'd be amazed at the number of people that have absolutely no idea that A, something like focal dystonia exists, and B, what it is.
How it manifests.
Yes, right. So I deal in a number of aspects of this problem.
What's the word Chopin used to souplesse?
Yes, right. Suppleness.
One would seem to think we respect that principle, we wouldn't enter it. Is the modern piano created some of the trouble?
I think most of the trouble has been created by discs, by records, because they've been made to sound perfect in the sense that all clinkers have been erased and replaced with the correct notes, so that that's one level of ideal that young people now have to aspire to, playing faultlessly without error, which already produces a kind of stress and
excessive practicing.
well, that's the main danger. Young people today seem to think that no harm is done as long as they're sitting at a keyboard. And in terms of muggings and assaults on people, I guess no harm is done, except after a certain amount of time, the mind can no longer appropriately concentrate, and what begins to set in is a kind of mindless practicing, which is the most dangerous kind, because you begin to imprint by this mindless repetition things on the brain that are not creative or productive. Then you have the ability to manipulate on records the sound, and somebody like Horowitz who plays a very, very brilliant light-actioned piano becomes a kind of ideal, and young people aspire to that and work trying to reproduce that, and very frequently hurting themselves in the process.
And the recordings have created a kind of, would it be fair to say,
Unrealistic, totally. Yeah.
It's not artistic perfection, but mechanical
Right.
perfection.
Yeah.
That's slavery.
I'm not so sure how sweet that slavery
I
is.
think it's Busoni. I read Busoni called Practicing Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about
Okay. I'll buy that. Wonderful.
Do you help students to forgive an occasional thinker?
Oh, I think, if something else is going on, if a real kind of communication, a real kind of spiritual, emotional relationship is set up, the clinkers become quite unimportant. There's another level of communication, and one is concentrating on that, and one scarcely notices the occasional clinker. But if not much is being communicated other than a desire to play as perfectly as possible, that's really not very interesting. And the slightest clinker assumes monumental proportions.
There's so much in the reading of the score. I remember your wonderful master class here where a young man played, I think, Beethoven F major sonata from Opus 10.
Yeah.
Quite beautifully, and it was a full hour of rethinking of the piece. One of your comments I recall, it's been quite a few years, but something to the effect that you can dress Beethoven up, but you can't take him out. But I'm wrong. I mean,
No, it's very close in that young people today in their efforts to be somehow psychologically healthy, to in the sense that to have no corners around one's self, one's soul, or one's physicality, so that you won't bump into anything and get a black and blue mark. And the same exists on a musical level. They will round off each phrase and kind of try to make it socially acceptable, to civilize it. And Beethoven was neither really civilized or socially acceptable. And one has to reach out and grab for life by the throat.
even in that earlier sonata, I want to hear.
Oh yeah. Yes, that kind of daring and incipient revolutionary character. Oh yeah.
I recall another young woman gave a performance, I think, first movement of the Schumann. The image you brought out of Spinnaker, I think it was
Spinnaker. God, what a memory you have, Mr. Wagner. My God. Yeah,
Suddenly she wasn't just flourishing, she
Yeah.
was bursting out.
Yeah. How nice. Yeah, I come by these similes and metaphors very legitimately Schnabel. For a person whose mother tongue was not English, his command of the language was a thing of beauty, and his speaking voice was very much like Richard Burton with a German accent. You know,
So rich.
rich, and he relished every syllable. You know, he enjoyed the language, and I find that with many Europeans. George Sell was another example. Their command of the language was simply extraordinary. Every nuance, every even the most ephemeral of feelings and ideas was they were able to articulate with vividness and exactitude. It's really quite amazing. We are very spoiled in this country, and it's too bad. You know, having these two oceans on either side of us. It isolates us in an unfortunate manner from the rest of the world.
Especially linguistic.
Yes, yeah.
I was born after Schnabel passed away, but my teacher in Cleveland was V.T. Vronsky.
No.
And
When were you
in the
there?
70s, it was just after Catherine Jacobson had just
Had left?
left.
I'll be damned.
And she used to speak with such. We listened to a Schnabel recording of Schubert once, and the bird sound of the bird singing in her life. You know, she was back there.
Yeah.
I found on YouTube a 20-second silent film of him speaking and gesticulating. It's the only.
Really?
There's no sound.
No sound.
It's the only time I've ever. There's no film as far
With
as I know,
Victor, really?
A recording of his.
You're talking about Victor now.
The Schnabel.
Of Schnabel.
There's only a 20-second. It's out on the computer. Someone took a home movie of him with a cigar.
Really?
And it's the only time I've ever seen a moving.
I have at home somewhere I think it's a 30-second commercial he made during World War II. Supporting the purchase of war bonds and the importance that it represented. That's the only sonic tape of his speaking. Wow.
Were you with him in New York?
Yes, yeah. I started with him in Lake Como in Italy in 1938. And then in 39 he came to New York, made his home in the Peter Stuyvesant Hotel, Central Park West in 86th Street, apartment 9C. He had an apartment that overlooked the park, and the studio contained a 9-foot concert grand Steinway and a little upright, almost a spinet kind of piano that he played. He called it his noodle board. and the sounds that he made come out of that instrument compared to what we produced out of the 9-foot concert grand were not to be compared. Incredible, really. Most daunting.
Was it seems, as I read through some of the press releases, that when you emerged from there and won the Queen Elizabeth competition, that then teaching and learning becomes just in the atmosphere. The conductors you work with, critics, and there was, after Schnabel, there was no main teacher.
No. No, who could you go to? No, I played a few times towards the end of my time with Schnabel. I played a few times for Horowitz, who also lived in New York over on the east side. But the main attraction there was that you would come and play for him whatever you were interested in playing for him. And then he would push you off the chair and he'd sit down and he'd spend the next 3 hours playing for you, playing the music that he was currently involved with. I remember one time it was endless Clementi sonatas. He had just discovered Clementi and he went through, I don't know, it seemed almost like hundreds of them. So that was a...
Well, he seems, I read Searchinger's book.
Caesar Searchinger, right.
And then I read, of course, Schnabel's own the lectures here at UC.
Yeah, right.
And he seems to have been a mind constantly evolving in motion.
Right.
With the word constantly re-examining.
Yeah.
Never with no finish.
Right.
And his lectures so brilliant. Someone must have, a stenographer took them down, I gather, from the forward. And they are fascinating to read.
They are.
And he doesn't always, it's not edited.
No.
But it is the most engaging.
Yeah. Well, there's a book by Crankshaw. I don't know if that includes, well, there's the Searchinger book. I think the Crankshaw book, no, that's My Life in Music. I think that has the Chicago lectures. His granddaughter, Carl Ulrich's daughter, Anne, is publishing a lecture that he gave at, I think it's the University of Manchester in England. And there are a couple of other, there might be a commencement address someplace there. And then there's Conrad Wolf's book. There are a number of very fine books.
Do I remember right that you and maybe Lord Hawk figured out that the prodigy Schnabel mentions in his University of Chicago lecture would have been...
Was me. Because we compared the dates of when he gave that lecture and the season. I think it was the summer prior to that. Claude was still in the army, I think, and I had played here at Ravinia for the first time with a young American conductor called Bernstein.
Mm-hmm.
He made his debut here, as did I. Yeah, we played two concertos. I played two concertos, Liszt A major and D minor Brahms. That was in summer of 1945. First time I ever played here, and I've been playing here ever since.
I heard your Brahms D minor 5, 6 years ago here.
Oh, with Yvonne Fisher.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Very good. Yeah, I've been playing here for 1945 to 2000. That's, what is that, 50, 63 years?
And
I'm playing here the end of,
63.
yeah, end of July. That'll be 63rd year since I've been here. Yeah, that was before the fire. That was when they had canvas. I remember that night of the Brahms with Lenny. Terrible rain and thunderstorm, which was just perfect for the D minor Brahms. Timpani roll and the opening. It was a great evening, I remember.
My goodness, thank you so much for taking some
Not at all.
time.
Pleasure.
I wanted to ask you, not necessarily for this, but I've been helping out with the 100th, now 101st celebration of Gunnar Johansson's.
Really?
And I did not know, but thought I read there was some connection with
Yes.
And I've interviewed him many years ago. And
Did you?
I've written about him on the occasion. And got to know him and his wife some, not I wish I knew better. Had you known him in the California?
Yes. I worked with him I think it must have been for some 6 months. He lived, I think, he lived across the bay. I don't think it was Berkeley. I think it was either Oakland or even Alameda. And the thing that I loved so much about those lessons is I got there by ferry. I would, take the ferry boat from downtown San Francisco across the bay and had lessons with him. A lovely teacher. And he had to leave towards the end of the summer, and I had a few lessons with a student of his called Buxbaum, Walter Buxbaum. That was before I found my final teacher before leaving San Francisco, who was Ludwig Altmann. Yeah. No, I worked with Gunnar.
We've reissued his Busoni concerto.
Really?
I can get one to you.
Oh, really?
Made in the 50s in, I think, Hamburg.
Oh,
Well, it was with Hans Schmidt Isselstein.
yeah.
And he championed that
Yes.
piece. Well, all of
All of Busoni, I think. Right. Right.
much.
Yeah. He was an extraordinary man.
Yeah, and they lived out in the woods there, in Madison, near Madison.
Really?
Yeah, he lived in the woods. He liked the nature.
Yeah.
I was up at the house many times. He had his 2 concert grands on which he recorded in the basement.
Uh-huh.
And then sort of did all his recording.
Yeah. Wonderful. Oh, I'd love to have that. Thank you.
Can I send it care of Peabody? Or
You could do that, or I could give you my home address. That would be actually best,
Okay.
which is 20 Merrymount, MERRYMOUNT, one word, Merrymount Road, Baltimore, 21210. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not at all.
And I'm looking forward to the class on Thursday.
Okay, yeah.